Hello, and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week we watched Resident Evil.
Yes, and what's the other one called? Welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah. So there's a lot of Resident Evil movies. We decided to go with one that we feel like was a huge cinematic staple. Also, the world's introduction to Slipknot. We went with the 2002 Mila Jovovich.
The first one.
Yeah. What is his name? What is the director's name? Anderson. Something Anderson. And I keep thinking, no, not Anderson. Because in my head, I'm like, wait, Paul Thomas Anderson directed Resident Evil, and that's not true.
Here we go. It is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Okay.
Who is Mila Jovovich's husband. And they have 3 daughters together. They met on filming this, I think.
Yes, they did.
I think that's where they met. Yeah.
So we watched that movie, and then the 2021 sort of true to game reboot, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City.
So what is your history with these movies, and also do you have any experience with the video games?
So I've played the video game. Well, is that true? I think I've played the games. I definitely have played 4. I
remember that one. Because that was Village, right? That's the one that was on the Wii.
I think.
Yeah, that's the one that was on the Wii. With Leon, and you have to save the president's daughter. And I remember that one.
You could say anything, and I would probably agree. Because you even saying that makes me distrust myself in the statement that I just said. Like, as soon as you started saying characters and plots, I'm like, wait, hold on. Did I actually play this game? So that's as much as I've played the video games. I love the idea of it. I like scary stuff. Zombies, cool. But my history with I guess my history with Resident Evil itself is entirely the DVD of the 2002 movie. I've watched it a million times. It literally is where my crush on Michelle Rodriguez started. It is literally where I heard of Slipknot. My Plague was a music video on the bonus features of this DVD. I used to watch the My Plague music video so many times, and that's really was like, oh, do I like Slipknot? This is cool. Yeah, so that's really it. I think I've seen several of the other ones. I definitely saw the one right after this, and I may have seen Extinction, but I think that's it. I haven't really kept up with it. And then now there's a new Netflix series coming out, which we just literally heard about like a couple days ago.
Yeah, it literally they just dropped the trailer, and I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so sick.
I know, it actually looks really cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. It doesn't look camp in the way that both of these films are.
No, I know. And that's the thing is this is silly, cut 'em up zombie shit. I don't know. But anyways, that's my whole history. What is your history with Resident Evil as a whole? Also, Mila Jovovich, just in general, obsessed with her. She's literally so hot and cool and talented and has changed the game for cinema. Anyways, continue.
100%. I think we talked about this with Catwoman and with just off pod where I definitely struggled as a young girl, where I'm oh, I want to be her. But then now as an adult, I'm is it that I wanted to be her or I want to be with her? And this is definitely one of those movies because that iconic red dress with the combat boots is everything.
Literally.
It's fucking everything. It's so good. And and she's so cool. And I think that's where my crush on her started. So yeah, I watched this movie. I wasn't a kid at that time. I was I want to say I was in my 18 to 20 something. I was somewhere in there, right? So a few years after the movie came out, but it's because I remember I never had Resident Evil growing up as a video game. My friends did. And of course I was very terrified of everything because hello, have you met me? But so I remember watching my friends play it because I used to go over to their house and play their systems with them all the time. And I was just terrified and was oh my God, I can't. But then the first time I remember watching it was this is so cool. This is incredible. But like I knew about the look and everything because like, I mean, it was just so iconic and it was everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like seeing like the cover and like being like, I really wish that this wasn't horror so I could watch this, or like I just like really would like gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
So I had watched the movie a couple of times since then, really loved it, 100%. And then I saw that this new one came out last year and I was like, oh, we have to do this, but it wasn't streaming, so we didn't do it until now. And it got backlogged because we had to do Scream and everything first. But
Yeah.
so here we are doing this. But it's really, the reason that I pitched this is because I wanted to talk about the first Resident Evil film, because it will always hold a special place in my heart, and I'm so happy that we're talking about it.
I know, me too. It's such a fun little... I mean, talk about nostalgia. It is great when we actually stumble upon something that does feel nostalgic for both of us. Where we do kind of hold that special place. Whether or not we like feel the same way moving forward, it's still fun because it is like, oh yeah, I remember I watched the shit out of this. I watched this so many times.
Yeah.
Like, how fun.
And I have started to go and watch the other movies in this series because they're all available on Peacock. So now I'm on, I just finished 3 and now I'm on 4. So I'm fucking in it. I'm like here for it. And I realized that I thought that I hadn't seen 3, but I had seen 3. It's just very forgettable. But that's okay.
What was 3?
3 is the one where the T-virus got out to the entire world. Everybody is basically dead. The whole world is a desert. And like,
so it's like the Book of Eli?
They have to go to Alaska because that's the only safe space. And yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it sounds...
But it is
It's a movie. It's fun. Do you want to hop into this first one?
Shall we?
Let's do it.
Underneath Raccoon City, the Umbrella Corporation hides a secret genetic research facility called the Hive, where they are researching ways to reanimate dead tissue through the T-virus. One day, someone releases the T-virus, causing the facility's AI control system, aka the Red Queen, to seal the hive and kill everyone inside to prevent a global outbreak. Meanwhile, a young woman named Alice, suffering amnesia, abruptly wakes up in the shower and tries to find clues as to who she is. Suddenly, she's attacked by an Umbrella commando unit and taken to the hive with another captive named Matt. Along the way, they find a man named Spence, and it's revealed that he and Alice are actually the head of security for the hive, which they can't remember due to nerve gas exposure. The group is then briefed on their real mission: enter the hive and disable the Red Queen.
The group eventually makes it to the Red Queen's chamber, losing 4 members to her laser defense system in the process. The Red Queen begs them not to restart her and explains the logic behind her actions, but they turn her off anyway, subsequently unleashing a horde of zombies upon themselves. In the process of battling their way out of the hive, a few more party members are bitten. Matt owns up to placing his sister in the hive to try to take down Umbrella. Alice remembers she was working with Matt's sister to expose the corporation, and Spence reveals he was the one that let the virus loose for some quick cash. More fighting ensues and more team members are lost, but eventually Matt and Alice make it out alive. Unfortunately, Umbrella is waiting for them. Sometime later, Alice wakes up alone in a medical facility, only to find out the T-virus escaped the hive after all. Apocalypse Cataclysm. I do feel like if we're gonna start, I want to start like just since we just said it, her waking up in the hospital right at the very end. It really did feel like they were like, can you do Lilu again from Fifth Element real quick? Like, you're going to wake up, you're going to be barely covered. Like, we are going to get some like soft, sexy nudity. You're going to be like, experiment, like, oh, pulling tubes out of your head and like a whole new world. Everything's different. Like, just do that again. That's what it felt like. Because also this movie is like, what, 5 years post Fifth Element?
Yeah, she is fully nude in that scene. Like, you can tell that she has nothing under there. You can see everything. And like in the shower too. And it's so funny. Danny, I am outing you, Danny. I'm sorry. I love you. And if you don't want the world to know this, you can cut this out. But I told Danny that I would watch it for the pod, and he was like, oh yeah, you know my theory when I was in high school about this movie? And I was like, what was your theory? And he's like, she wasn't wearing panties the whole time. And I was like, Danny, she literally has shorts on under that dress. And he's like, no, she doesn't. And I was like, yes, she absolutely does. And so we went back and forth about it. And he just hadn't seen the movie in a long time.
Oh,
so
okay.
I pulled it up and he was just like, oh, well, you know, like 16-year-old, 15-year-old Danny, you know.
I mean, but in that last scene, she's definitely not wearing anything. And here's my thing. I base level all the time, always. I love nudity. I love when people are confident and want to show their bodies. I think people showing their bodies is awesome. Like, no matter what, I love it. Especially, like, I mean, oh, God. It just, to me, like, no matter how you look, no matter what kind of body you have, that kind of, like, confidence in oneself to show off, I think is the hottest thing. Like, yes, I'm so into it. And so whenever she does, because, like, she's very comfortable being nude. So whenever I see her in something, I'm just like, you're so hot. Like, good for you. Like, that's so sick. Especially in something like this where it's like, it's very clear that she's very nude. And you're like, good on you. She's so cool. I love Mila Jovovich so much. But yeah, that's my take on cinematic nudity. I think nudity heightens most things because it is a truth that we all share. Right? Like, we are all people with bodies. Like, we all have different kinds of bodies too. Like, I don't know. I just like
I
people
love
who choose
nudity
to do nudity
when it's not just like, I don't know. It depends because like a lot of the time, like nudity in film is centered around the male gaze, right? Yeah. And so that's when it does get a little bit icky for me.
Same.
But like when it's like presented in these ways where it's not just through that lens, right? Like, because it is, like, you're right, it is such a power to like, when somebody is just like standing there and like owning their nudity and like not fazed by it at all. I think that's one of the things about Westworld that I thought was like so cool and interesting is you have all of these like all of these actors that, you know, of all different shapes and sizes and everything that are just like, you know, they're full ass naked men and women, right? And like I was like, this is so cool.
I love it. I literally I like when people like, because again, it's, and I mean Flexia, but like that thing where somebody had like blackmailed her and they're like, we have your nudes, like give us money or else we'll post these. Same day she posted nudes on her own Twitter and was like, hey everybody, here's what I look like naked. Somebody's blackmailing me. They say they have nudes. They hold no power over me. We all have bodies. Here's mine. And you're like, oh, queen. Obviously, like, I hate the circumstance of having to like do that, but like just having ownership of your body in a way that is like confident and loving. And I know it's such an easy thing with like body dysmorphia and everything. I know it's like a bigger conversation, but in general, I love it. I'm so into it. I love when people have that like the confidence of their own bodily autonomy and like they choose to like own it in a way that like, yeah, it doesn't matter how I look at it. It looks amazing. And look how great I am in it. Like, gorgeous. You're like, yeah, you're so cool. Okay. So Resident Evil.
And that's how we start with her too. Like, does she know anything about herself? No, but she's so cool. Like right off the get-go. Like, first of all, I also want to say that I love how this starts where it's just like, oh, just go into the office. Everybody's doing their own thing. Right. And like, I love the concept of this being like a facility deep underground where like the, you know, views that they have and the sounds are all fake and manufactured and that's where they live and they sleep. And I love this idea because like Umbrella, like this is something that I think horror does really well and was doing before a lot of other genres or any, like, you know, and also sci-fi was doing this too. Like, and there's a lot of crossover between horror and sci-fi. And this is one of those things where it's like big corporation owns everything, owns you, does not have your best interest in mind, right? Like where they have this image of like, making life so much better, you know, and being such an integral part of your life where they're literally out to kill you, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you can replace Umbrella with like literally insert, you know, any big corporation in there, which I really like that. And so I think that this commentary works so much better. Like the older I get and the more I understand capitalism and how it works and, you know, I see the actions of these big corporations, the more I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, also, especially being in the age of Amazon. Like, I mean, I feel like there has been no company like Amazon in the past to its success and the detriment of the well-being of everyone's lives. And it's so clear that like the Umbrella Corporation, especially in its idea of like conglomerate everything, it owns everything. It owns all subsidiaries of all different types of capitalist income. Like we're doing pills, we're doing food, we're doing clothes, we're doing everything, and we own it. That's us. We do it. We're the ones. And it's like, oh yeah, that's just Amazon.
Like even the bullets that she shoots like are Umbrella branded, and I love that like little detail. I'm just like, this is great. I love this. And I also love that the systems that like they put in place to like check themselves are just so easily removed too, right? Because that's exactly how it would happen, you know, or is happening and has been happening, right? Oh no, she just went on a rampage and started murdering everybody. Where if they let the Red Queen just like contain the hive and that was done, right? Then the whole world in this universe would not have been desecrated, right?
Yeah.
And it's all their fault.
Yeah. I think this whole opening sequence is great because it is so scary. Like, not only are they so far underground, but like they're locked. They're trapped. They're killed, systematically destroyed because of a possible globally catastrophic outbreak. Ooh, fuck. I got it on the third try. This also instilled in me a fear of elevators because this, with a 1-2 punch of Final Destination 2 the year after, really set in motion my fear of getting my head chopped off in an elevator.
I did look away because that
it happens in both movies. It's very clear. Oh no, we're stuck. Like, open it. Let me get out. And then like the down, and then the down fake out, and then the up and like chop off. Ooh, so terrifying. And what a cool opening sequence.
Also, the fact that it's like that the T virus is so like adaptable, right? So it starts off airborne, and then it can be liquid. It can be transferred through blood and everything. Like one bite, one scratch, you know, like that's what gets you. And I really like the way that they describe the zombies is, you know, they have no memory, no intelligence. All they are existing for is to like consume, and it's not because like they need to, but it's just because like that's what they are, and that's all that they are now. Like it doesn't actually sustain them. They just, you know, see something and they need to devour it. And I think that that's also like, I mean, that's not a new commentary, right? That's like, you know, that is zombies. But I also like that in this iteration of zombies, it is very apparent that this condition is manufactured by Umbrella, right? By Amazon, by insert. I actually, in the episode description, I almost like put Amazon instead of Umbrella.
Yeah.
Because I thought that would be fun. But I like that because like the company itself like doesn't give a shit about like what happened last year or, you know, like, or what it's actually doing to anybody. All it wants to do is just grow and grow and grow. Not because, not with anything in mind. They just need more money for shareholders, or, you know, like, we're going to go to the moon. Why? Because we have money, you know, like, just because. And that level of consumerism on both like an individual and a corporation level is what literally like drains the world and destroys all of its resources.
Yeah, and I do like just going back to like the commentary on zombies in general, and like zombie is a trope, right? It's that sort of like, it is the undead, but it's also like, it's the fear. I feel like most of it stems from the fear of others who lack cognizance or the capacity to recognize their surroundings. The only thing that they need is the capacity to take, to kill, and to consume. Like that's the zombie way. There's no consideration. They don't really even exist. They're just vessels for this other thing. They are whatever they need to be, and the thing that they need to be is the thing that they need to do is survive. So it's that the fear of like a being who completely lacks all empathy, all sympathy, all cognizance, a shell of a person with all the capabilities of an animal, like just a wild animal. It's like a fun idea, and it's a fun concept. Zombies are very scary, and I like zombie stuff. I feel like I've always sort of been a zombie fan. Now, one of my big things with this movie is, and I still hate it, zombie dogs kill people. Like, that's fine. And they do it in the other one too, and that's a huge part of Resident Evil. I understand that like the Doberman zombie pup is like a staple for this series, but It's just so sad. I hate it. I hate like the idea of like dead animals just really fucks me up. I'm like, yeah, kill people. People who needs them. But dogs did nothing wrong. And how dare you? Cats, leave them out of this. Go away.
Birds, like, and also it's a very specific animal that they're showing, right? It is a Doberman, like you're saying, and it is a crow. Like those are the two animals that like are out of the entire animal kingdom, that those are the only two that we ever see. It like I just finished movie 3, and that's basically the only animals that I've seen. So, but yeah, like I think it's really fucked up. It's fucked up.
It's just, and I get it for the fear element. I also understand that like again, it's part of the game, and I get that like a dog or an animal or a wolf, even like admirable foe. Like, oh, how are they going to get past this like ferocious animal, especially an undead one? But in anything, whenever there's a dead animal of any kind, I'm always just like, oh, stop. Like, you don't have to do that. But I still feel the same way now. Dobermans are fucking cool. They always will be. They look so scary and cool. And, well, whatever. That wasn't on our podcast, but we did talk about Dobermans on another podcast, From Death Becomes Her.
Yes, we did.
Because they were just like the cool, like kind of scary, like guard dogs who are also like, are they otherworldly? Who knows? They're just very interesting dogs.
Spoiler alert, we are going to be on another podcast eventually talking about Death Becomes Her and Josie and the Pussycats. So
yes.
Look out for that in late July, August. But anyways.
At some point. Yeah. We'll be promoting it. But I want to talk about Alice's cognizance.
Yes.
Just her growth in this, where it's like she's hit with the gas. She doesn't remember anything. She's simply a person who has short-term memory loss, is not aware of what's going on, who she is, why she's here. But as she's confronted with each one of these foes, we start to see her recognize her own ability instinctually. We're like, the first time we see it, it's with the dogs. Wait, no, it's with...
I think it's before the dogs.
It's like the same scene. There's the zombie guy who she kicks into the shelf, and then he comes back alive, and she like jumps on him and like snaps his neck, and then the dog comes down.
That it's before that.
Where?
Like we see her like fighting strength. I think that's when we see her fighting strength. But I think before that, we start to get like a grounds for her morality even before that, because as she starts to kind of like question things, and she's not just like, as these people are like, oh yeah, you're this, or oh yeah, this is your relationship, and like she is actively like reassessing and processing all the information around her and seeing how people treat each other and seeing kind of like what happens. So like I think like the first time that we really see her make a decision is when they're in the Red Queen's chamber, and like the 4 guys just like got sliced and diced by that sick ass laser system, right? Which like I don't understand why the Red Queen didn't just turn it on again. But I mean, I have so many moments like that in this movie, but I will forgive all of them because I love this movie, but I will point them out for the sake of the podcast. But like the one soldier that's left is like, oh, I still have to do this even though I'm probably going to die. And Matt is in the room too. And like everybody's just kind of looking around. They're like, I'm not going. He's like, well, I'm going to go by myself. And she makes the active choice. Like, I'm not going to let him do this by himself. Like,
when she walks in behind him and scares him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's just like, hey, and she's like, yeah, let's go. Like, you're not going alone. I've got you. This is a shitty situation. We're going to make the best of it. We're going to get through this.
That's her character through and through. Even in like, in this movie, she doesn't want anybody to die or to leave, especially if they don't deserve it, right? But she's also like fearless. Like, so I think we get both of those things in this, where she's like dependable. She's there for people. She cares about people, even if she doesn't know them. She just has this like nature, but she also is fucking fearless because she just saw like the guy that's in charge literally get diced into like that scene is so good.
That scene was so scary as a kid. It's literally so seared into my brain, of them like panicking, backing up, and then they duck, and the last soldier is too slow, and then you watch as like the red line shows up on her neck.
Yes.
and it like it like kind of like shifts around her, and then her head just slides off, and then it comes again, and like the guy, it's like, oh, it's on the ground now, jump, and it like jumps with him and cuts him in half, and you're like, oh my god,
that was terrifying.
That's so scary. Ugh,
and then the
so
like
scary.
the crisscross, just like, oh well, you're fucked. There's literally nothing you can do in this point.
Yeah. Oh my god. Fuck. The way he has like the eye color like starts dripping out of his eye. So scary and bad. And I remember just being like, this is fucked. This is crazy. This movie is so insane. Yeah, that whole like, apart from the generalized killing of like all the employees, you don't really see how like severe shit is until that scene where you're like, oh no, it's just like, we are maiming bodies. We are decimating these characters in the most grotesque ways possible. And you're like, well, okay, here's this movie. Fuck. This is going to be really gross.
All right, 2002, give it to me.
I know. Oh my God.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut. So yeah, like the first time we really start to see her like physical abilities, right, is that scene that you were mentioning with the dog and with the
that other
guy.
Zombie. Yeah, because she does like the jump. I think is it the scene where she jumps and like pulls herself up, legs wrapped around his neck, and like twists, just like breaks his neck with her thighs.
It's so hot.
It's so hot. It's so fucking cool. Because then even in that same sequence, like she's trying to get away from the dogs, and she gets the because he was a guard or somebody who worked there, but he had a gun. So once the zombie's dead, she takes his gun, goes out, realizes there's like 10 dogs, shoots like all of them, which we're like, okay. She's out of bullets, realizes there's one last dog, is chased into the corner. As she runs into the corner, she does like a kick off one wall, kick off another one, spin in the air, and just like kick to the head to break his neck, and like lands. And you're like, it's so cool because it is somebody who is like, you're watching her get this momentum back. You're watching her come into the confidence and the power that she has after being like, because we're introduced to her, she's like a helpless hottie. She's literally like this damsel in a red dress. Like she's in the shower. She's like, wait, no, I have to cover up. Like they're coming, whatever. And
that
so
lovely
we're seeing
trope that we
the
see,
lovely
right?
trope. And so we're getting to watch her literally like, I know how to do this. And then it's like, oh, for sure. Like I was the one who was going to destroy this place. It was me. Fuck yeah. Like, oh, I know how to use a gun. Bang, 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 bang. Hit every target every time. Like it's just great because it's one of those, it's really affirming because it is one of those things where like, oh, of course I can do this. Yeah. Why did I doubt myself? Yeah. I'm so good at this. And seeing her hit every one of those checkpoints, so much fun.
It is a really cool journey to go from being the damsel in the shower, right? Like, and instead of like her getting killed there or something awful happening, like we just kind of like see her start to, remember who she is, whether it's like, some of it is like some of her instincts, some of it is like her deductive reasoning, but like we're seeing this growth in her, which is really, really cool, and it's one of my favorite things about this movie. Like
it is.
100%.
I mean, same. And I was going to say, like, I know she slips in the shower, but I did want to also point out, like, there is no bath mat. There is nothing around. That is the slipperiest bathroom I've ever seen. It is marble tile everywhere. I'm like, if she didn't slip in the shower, babe, she's going to slip on her way out. She's going to slip on her way to go to the bathroom. She's going to slip every single point. Like, there's not even a bath mat on the ground. Like, I know that we're rich, right? We're rich in this, like, lavish, rich house. We have money. Safety first. Jesus Christ. Safety first. Like, that is such a dangerous thing. Like, if you slip and you hit that beautiful little head on that thing, concussion A, B, bleed out. Like, you're struggling. And you're so far from stuff. Like, you're rich. You do not want to be by poor people. So you are away from society. You're going to die there. They will not get to you fast enough no matter how much money you have. Well, and God. I think... Get a bath mat. Get a bath mat.
I think that she slipped in the shower because she fell unconscious from the nerve gas.
No, but she did. But what I'm saying is like...
But like also, yes.
If that hadn't even happened, I'm like, she's slipping on the way out. She like... Fuck this whole story. Nerve gas didn't release. She's in the shower. Ooh, let me dry off. Let me reach for a towel. I'm going to step out onto the tile with my wet toe. there's nothing to catch the wetness except for your absolutely slippery foot skin. And that is not going to save you. You're going to fall.
Sweetheart, you can't
and
do
you
that.
are too, like, those bones are going to snap. I know that you're, like, strong and probably have, like, spidey senses or whatever. Like, she is cool. And if she didn't have the gas, she would be, like, obviously, like, her most powerful off the bat and would have probably survived. But even still, like, get a bath mat. They're like $20 max. Or a towel. Put a $5 towel on the ground. It's so dumb.
That's fun.
So that was I could not stop thinking that. Like, anytime it would flashback, I'm like, oh my God, I hate this fucking bathroom. Like, it's probably also, and not to like keep staying in this bathroom, it's probably so fucking cold. Like,
probably.
Are you kidding me? My nipples would pop off. Like, that would not work well at all. That would be so gross. God, rich people are so annoying. Okay.
Yeah, truly.
You were
truly. Well, yes. I also wanted to mention how important Alice's relationships with women are in this movie, which I never really got until like watching, until honestly, again, like redoing my notes, which I don't have a lot of because there wasn't a lot. Like, I mean, y'all know me. Usually I'll take like, 2 pages at least. But like, I mean, I have a page and a half maybe for these movies. Maybe. Yeah. It's probably more like a page. Anyways, but yeah, her relationships with women where like she is like it feels like every dude that she meets, she is instantly sus, like she's suspecting them of something and she's on guard with them. But whenever it comes to like any of the women, right? Like I feel like Rain, right? She's like, she's like, okay, well, you're capable, clearly. Like, she doesn't really, like, doubt her. I mean, there's not, like, a lot of interaction with them until the end, but she was trying to protect Matt's sister, right? She's like, cool, I've got you. Just, like, I can get you out of here. Let's take this down together. Cool, cool, cool. Even the Red Queen at the end, like, she tried to, like, reactivate her. And, like, like, there was, like, that whole exchange. But, like, she's at every step, like, more willing to trust women than she is like men, which I love. And the only, like, I mean, so many people fucking die in this, right? Like, and like presumably like this dude that she spent like so much time with as like her fake husband, right? But the only one that she cries for is Rain, and she just fucking met her, right? And I love that that like exchange at the end where like she's literally
gonna shoot
like,
her.
Yeah, she's gonna shoot her, and then Rain's like, because Rain said like, hey, if I start to go, like if I go, you fucking kill me. Don't worry about it. Just
I'm already
you gotta
dead.
do me in.
Just do it. Yeah.
And so then she like nods off, and like Alice thinks as it's happening, shows she like has the gun and she's ready to do it, and then Michelle Rodriguez is just like, I ain't dead yet, excuse me.
Like,
and
she snaps the gun out of her hand. She's like, I am not dead yet. You're like,
and then
okay.
Alice is like, I could kiss you. Like, and then like, I could kiss you, you bitch. Like, oh my God. And this like, the connection that they have through not having a lot of like interaction, like any interaction outside of like being this whole hive situation, like, to me, I was like, oh, I love this. I love this so much. And
also,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say to that effect, like the way that Rain and Alice literally are the only ones kind of like keeping anything grounded. The men are so silly and bad and like terrible under pressure. Like the one guy, I mean, obviously he just watched all of his friends die, but like he's going in and he's like trembling, he doesn't really know what to do. And then even later in the other room, it's like, what's the code? He's like, 540. What is the code? 036. You said it was 54. Yeah, it is. It's 54. What's the fucking code? Give me a second. And then it's just like you watch Rain just like across the room, like ba 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 ba. Like she's literally like keeping the wave of zombies away from them while they fumble trying to get this single code out of the way. And I mean, even in that same scene, what's his name? The bad guy? Spence. He's still handcuffed, but he has the keys, and he's like fumbling to try to get himself uncuffed, and he ends up dropping the keys into a grate. Like, it's these like fumbly dumb boys, and like Alice, who is the most calm person, and at every turn is like, oh no, I got this. Like, I'm fine. I can do this. And Rain, who arguably is like, she's a little messy. She's a little bit like all over the place, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the military people, she's the most capable of them, of the soldiers. she's the one putting herself in front of everybody else.
Yeah.
At every point. And so she's literally just like sacrificing herself for the good of the team. Not saying she knows that like if she gets bit, she's going to turn. I mean, she finds out later, and even then she's like, oh, well, fuck. Well, I'm going to die, so whatever. But again, this just goes to like, it's cool to see her and Alice as being like the core group here. And I mean, reluctantly followed by what's his name? The goofy
Matt.
guy who gets pulled out. Well, Matt, yes, but also the goofy, I can't remember the code, who gets pulled out of the train.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
You know, I mean, he does his best, but even then it's like...
But it's really the two women that carry this movie.
Yeah.
And I really did want them to kiss. I wanted them to be girlfriends. I wanted Rain to make it out.
Could
and
you
I'm really sad that
imagine?
we didn't get that
Ugh.
because, like, can you imagine, like, Michelle Rodriguez and Mila, like, and that is just the Resident Evil franchise? Like,
I would
God.
die. B, for its time, I would probably have some issues just because I'm like, this feels so gross and like, not predatory, but like objectifying, where it's like, oh yeah, the gun movie, let's have the girls fuck. Like, not just, you know, like, it feels like it would be coming from a gross place. But my third point is I would have died. Like, I personally would have been like, this is insane, and I'm so into it.
I mean, but like if we're talking about objectification, we're literally having we have Alice start and end the movie naked. So
Let's go. Yeah.
let's
kiss
just
her.
do it. Yeah. Because I think there is like a mutual like attraction and like a respect for each other. Like, because again, they're the only people that they can really like rely on in this instance. So she's even dependable when she's bitten by a zombie. You know what I mean? And like, so anyways, yeah, I wanted them to be girlfriends, but you know, it's okay.
Yay. Okay, cool. I was just looking it up because I was like, I don't want to assume anything. I do think that Michelle Rodriguez is canonically bi, which is cool. Because I mean, obviously, I was always like, which is like a dumb assumption, but like I was like, oh, I feel like she's gay, and it's simply because of the expectation of like cis female, like that binary is gross. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, she's like a hot queer, and I'm like so into it. But she is apparently canonically bisexual. So shout out to queer icon Michelle Rodriguez. She's great and so hot and so cool, and I'm obsessed with her.
And I love that so I think I said this off pod, but so Michelle Rodriguez loved the Resident Evil games so much that like she made her agent promise her, I think it was like in the contract or something, like that if there's ever a Resident Evil film that she is going to be in it. And so I love that for her, and I love that for us, because then we got this wonderful performance from her. But I think that's so fun, especially as like a young female gamer, like always looking for other women gamers. I'm like, that's so cool. Yeah. That's fucking cool. But also like this movie doesn't really have a lot to do with like it has practically nothing to do with the Resident Evil games. Like the script was written beforehand, and then Paul W.S. Anderson played the Resident Evil games and was like, oh my God, I need to change my script, and just like kind of like reimagined his script as if it was the Resident Evil universe. So this is not true to the games. There's like definitely some like names that pop up and some like ideals and stuff, but like the next one is the one that is like very true to the games, and that's like what people wanted, I guess. I don't know. But I liked this. I think it was dope. I did not understand. There are several times where there are like 100 zombies in this corridor. And then the next scene where we've gone past 100 zombies in that corridor, where it's like, we can't get out. Oh my God, we're trapped. And then Alice finds her way to the room and somehow like bypassed the 100 zombies in the corridor. There's so many of those moments where I'm like, I'm sorry, wait, what, how did you even get out of there? Because you couldn't get out of this room because there were 100 zombies in the corridor. Yeah. So that's really silly and really fun. It's like, what?
She's a pro. She's on it. She's got it. She's a pro. I really did just have one more thing to say, actually. Sorry. It's the song from the movie. Danny, I'm so sorry if I scared you with that. I won't do, baby. It's a great song. And it's so dumb because it's a live video on the bonus feature. Cut to clips of the movie, and some of the clips are just so dumb because Slipknot just seems so silly, and I think that's part of the deal. It's like they're just so silly, and I love it. Some of like the posse guys who are percussionists technically, but like they're really just like the hype men of the group. It's like one of the clowns is just like on like a barrel of drums that's spinning, and he's like on all fours as it spins, and he's just headbanging. He's not playing anything. He's just like, and it's so funny because it like I always was just like, man, I wish I could just be like a dumb hype man in like one of these groups. I don't know. Whatever. I think Slipknot's cool.
You could put out a Craigslist ad. I'm sure that somebody would love a hype man.
When nobody plays instruments, we just come out and hype to a backtrack is the deal. Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's scoot on over to New Raccoon City.
Yes.
In the 1980s, Claire Redfield runs away from the Raccoon City orphanage, leaving her brother Chris behind, but decides to come back for him years later to warn him about the Umbrella Corporation's secret genetic experiments she learned about on the internet. Chris, who has a habit of not believing his sister, doesn't believe her and tells her to leave and goes back to work at the Raccoon City Police Department. However, Claire is certain her theory is correct after being attacked by zombies and goes after her brother. Meanwhile, the cops at RCPD are hard at work doing a lot of nothing. Unaffected by the contaminated water, a group of cops, including Jill Valentine, Wesker, and Chris, go to investigate the disappearance of two other cops at a secluded mansion, while Raccoon City literally eats itself alive.
The cops at the mansion run into a whole lot of zombies, while Wesker follows directions from a mysterious Palm Pilot. As it turns out, underneath Raccoon City, the Umbrella Corporation was hiding a secret genetic research facility called the Hive, where they were researching ways to reanimate dead tissue through the T-virus, which Wesker intends to sell to his Palm Pilot benefactor. Eventually, Claire and Leon join the party at the mansion, only to find Dr. Birkin, his family, and Wesker in a messy situation. Wesker takes off, Birkin is a mega zombie, and the group heads to the orphanage to take a secret train out of town. Birkin chases them, but there's a rocket launcher on this train, so they kill him and make it out in time. Okay, first and foremost, I would love to just shout out this soundtrack for being completely wild and off the rails, and okay. I don't even know what's happening.
Let's talk about
it. My favorite scene, the best scene of the entire movie. And I hope that this is also, I mean, it might not be your favorite scene, but it's my favorite scene. I actually stopped the movie, rewound it, and made David come out because I was laughing so fucking hard at this, where Leon is just sitting there with his headphones at the desk for the police department, nodding off because he's just such a sleepy guy, right? And he's bumping a song so hard in his headphones that he does not notice a semi fall over in front of the police station, like crash and blow up, and a man on fire walk into the police station. Like, he doesn't notice any of this. And do you know what song that is that he's bumping?
It's just a little crush.
He is bumping that so
every time
hard.
We touch.
Okay,
yeah.
And look at that is a bop. I fucking love that song. But imagine just this man bumping this song so fucking loud through his non-noise canceling headphones that he does not like hear a literal explosion in front of his face.
Yeah. I mean, that whole...
My favorite thing.
So I will also say this was my favorite sequence as well. We see the semi-truck driver from the one of the earlier scenes, him and his dog, who are both now like zombified, driving towards the police department steps, like running into cars, and you're hearing the song sort of building in the background. He like turns, the car crashes, knocks over, it explodes. We're still seeing him behind the desk with literally the shittiest headphones. Like, you know, like this cheapest plastic with the foam that does nothing. It's still like these plastic parts underneath the foam are still like piercing into your ears. Like there's no pressure on your ears. You could hear the wind rustling between the ear in these headphones. Like they're so bad. But he has them because they're the 90s vibe, and he's like fast asleep while the semi explodes, front door to the police department fully open, right on the steps of the building, and still asleep naturally. And you watch the truck driver just engulfed in flames walking through as that is just a little crush. And he's going, and
I'm obsessed.
I did write camp. Like this movie is so dumb. That is the dumbest, like that is the silliest set. Like that song is what makes it, because like if it was like a fucking Rob Zombie song or something, I'd be like, okay, that's fine, like that makes sense. But the fact that it's just like this smooth, like yearning love song, ooh, and he's just like literally like okay, because all the levels to it, it's like when you're burning with love, he's literally burning on fire, like blah 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 blah. And there's also like the unrequited love, like he's burning with passion. This other person doesn't even know he exists. There's so many of these like little dumb layers to it, and that don't even really like aren't even really there. I'm just really just like spitballing. But
it was a choice, and I back it. 100%.
It was a choice, and it was a great choice. It really was. Also, for me, the best scene of the movie.
Without this scene, this movie is nothing.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of another scene that I thought was so funny, like just like I don't think it was supposed to intentionally be funny, but like maybe when they're first at the diner and we're meeting that waitress who's like waiting on the cops and giving them their coffee, she comes back and starts talking to what is that guy's name? This young cop, the rookie?
Leon. It's
Leon.
the same
yes.
one. The same headphones guy.
So Leon is sitting there and talking to her, and she starts bleeding from one of her eyes. And he's like, hey, does that happen a lot? He's like, oh yeah, it's fine. And it's like, you should get that checked out. It's like, whatever. But the way she like delivers these lines felt like a Kristen Wiig sketch. Like, it's like, you're literally bleeding from your eyes. Like, oh, it's nothing. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, what do you guys want? Like, it was so cute and funny. And I was like, is this movie funny? Like, that was actually pretty good. Like, is that where we're going with this?
I mean, it has to be, because this whole thing is, I mean, and I know that it's a nod to the video games, but like our first real up close interaction with the zombies, like the neighbor looks at Claire and says, itchy tasty. Or itchy scratchy or something. Wait, what is it? I wrote it down. Video game.
Itchy tasty.
I know that it's in the video game, and that's like everything that I read about this is it is so much closer to the video game. This is the video game. This is the video game, which is great. But that
it's silly. It's a silly movie.
So silly.
And to be fully honest, I will say, before I knew that it was a direct like trying to make the first video game, like, and there are certain sequences that are like,
and also the second video game too, because
it
so it's 1 and 2
them all together. 1 and 2,
because there's like the video game. I think 1 and 2 take place at the same time, but are different takes on what's happening around like Raccoon City, right?
Okay.
Anyway,
so I know that they're trying to also do some shot for shot sequences from the games, which I thought were really cool. As somebody who doesn't have that knowledge, I will say there were certain moments into the movie, because it was, I forget at what point, but Eric came down and was like, oh yeah, like how you like it? I was like, it's kind of boring. Like in general, I'm like, I'm actually like kind of bored. He's like, oh yeah, they're trying to do like the shot for shot video game. I was like, what? So I paused it and like did some research and found out like, yeah, in fact, like a lot of this stuff is just like they're trying to pay homage to these early Resident Evil video games. And after I knew that kind of changed my perspective on it, because I did think it was kind of boring until I knew that. Is that crazy? Is that wild?
No, I mean, I thought the same thing, and that's why like everything was just so funny to me. And having a little bit of knowledge about the games, because again, I never played it, but like my ex-husband, like this is like his favorite video game franchise, and like I sat there and watched him play again all of like Resident Evil 4 and also 5 and like all this stuff. But like I know enough about it to know like, oh yeah, they're 100% going for the video game, right?
Yeah.
Like the piano thing, the like all these things, right?
Yeah, him looking at the little Palm Pilot and like hitting the right notes on the
And what this reminds me of is, so it's owned by Capcom. Capcom has deals with Sony. So I was like, okay, this is a video game like company that is making this movie, right? And it feels like, you know, when Disney tries to turn their animated films into live action, or they try to turn a ride, like a ride into
Mansion.
a movie. Yes, which
Or
they're
Pirates of the
doing a
Caribbean.
remake of the Haunted Mansion, by the way.
Are they?
So
Why?
now we get to do that for this podcast. Thank you, Disney. They just love us so much. But yeah, so that's kind of what this reminded me of, where I do think that video game movies can be done well, and in that you have to make choices and you can't tell too much of a story, because like video games are so expansive. Like, I mean, they're anywhere between like 20 and like 80 hours if you're a completionist like me, but or like, you know, like 40 hours of like story content, right? So if you're going to break that down and distill that, and it's kind of like the same issue that like trying to make a movie out of like, you know, a book series or something, like a whole series, like that becomes a little bit problematic, like, you know, storytelling wise. Not problematic like, oh, that's like what a bad choice. I mean, sometimes but like, but
less
I think
messy, more so just difficult.
Just difficult, right? Because you have so many characters and you have so many scenes and so many things that you need to include. And to me, I felt like the nostalgia really held this film back, because I don't feel like we really got anything from anybody. Yeah, we didn't get anything.
Like, as just a standard viewer looking at this movie as a standalone film, understanding that, like, yes, it's pulling from Resident Evil. I'm familiar with the IP, like, cool. Not knowing much about the games, it really zips through any scenes where, like, we need to start investing our time in these characters. Like, there was nothing that made me want to spend time with anybody here. Like, the brother's a cop, boo. This girl, okay, like, she seems cool, but like, what else? Like, tell us more about her. Let's spend some time with her.
And like, the whole time, my problem with their characterization of Claire is she comes off as this crazy person that's like on the chat rooms in like 1998 when this like film takes place, right? Because of course it's a period piece, of course. So everything is like, oh, well, you're unstable because you left. First, you grew up in an orphanage. Second, you left and nobody believes you and everything. So now you're hitchhiking back to Raccoon City. Okay. And you just know how to pick all of the, like, I don't know. There was so much where I was like, okay, I guess. But like, everybody is shitty to her. Nobody believes her. And she's just like, she's been fucked over by Dr. Birkin, right? And by Umbrella at large, right? And I don't think that they ever once like gave her like a real redeeming quality or gave her any sort of a personality. Like, she literally is just, this is all of my trauma. And I don't even know why she came back for her brother. Like, I don't.
Why would
like,
you come
after
back to
like
this
being
place?
away for so long? Like, even a phone call, something, you know, like. But like it makes her seem crazy where she's like, oh, this guy in this chat room said this. Look at this guy. It's so true. And she doesn't have like anything to back it up or anything. And I mean, nobody believed you back when you were saying like Lisa Trevor. Of course, nobody is going to believe you now, you know? And I really had a
There's no
hard
depth.
time.
Yeah, I had a really hard time for that exact reason. Like, because to me, I'm like, if this character wears her trauma on her sleeve, she is gullible and confident. Like, I'm down for a character who's all of these things. But you have to make her a little bit more complex. Like, she can't be all of these things all the time, all at once, with no variation of volume. Like, give her a little bit of a compassion, give her like a compassionate monologue, or give her something to bring her down to then amplify back up. And when we revisit these traumas, we understand and can empathize because we know where it came from. Like, we're with her. Like, give us a reason to be with her and to trust her in the way that, like, her being kind of our main character, like, in the way that we should with her. Like, we're not like, because obviously we're not empathizing with any of these cops. It's not like we're like, she's obviously the lead. She is the main character. She's the outlier of all of this. So it's like, oh, it's her story, the misunderstood, nerdy punk who's like coming, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to give us more. And I feel like with every one of these characters, we were given like just one tone of character and none of it was explored. And that just was, I mean, with anything with characters like that, it's gonna be fucking boring.
Like, even Jill is such a badass. Like, she's so fucking, again, I've been going on this like binge watch of all the other movies, and like, I know Jill in the games is a fucking badass, and in this one, like, her badassery is that she just like, she made the ketchup bottle get off the guy's head, right? Like, and I'm like, okay, but she's like so wrapped up in Wesker that like she isn't even like a real character until she like kind of breaks off from him to save Chris. And even then, that's like kind of like played off as like romantic, right? Because like Chris obviously has this big crush on her, and we don't really get to see her be a fucking badass, be the badass that I'm looking for with this character, you know? And I loved, like, I mean, she looked beefy. She looked like she could kick some fucking ass, right? So I'm like, I'm here for this interpretation of Jill because Jill historically is very, very, very sexualized in the games. So I was also really disappointed in that because I'm like, she's so strong. She's so cool. Just literally
give us more. Like,
but every woman is like tied to the men in this, and like their whole character and character motivation is tied to men. They're not doing anything for themselves. They're not like even doing anything for each other, really. And so it's like, and all of these men are just making really shitty decisions.
Yeah, and that's like the hardest part is like, because when anything happened, like my biggest thing was like, why? Like, why did that happen? Like, who? What? Like, why? Like,
because the video game.
I know, and that's what. And again, it wasn't until I had that context that I was like, oh, well, now some of this kind of makes sense. If we're looking at like a series of cutscenes from a video game, I'm like, oh, well, obviously there's going to be some context that's lost because these are cutscenes. Cool. And I mean, I will say some of them were excellent. Like some of the gameplay POV stuff, like with him and his lighter, like, and he'd light and you'd see a little bit and you'd see a face and it would disappear. Like, oh, I'm playing the fucking game. This is so scary. And like how exciting and how cool. And some of these zombies looked amazing. And I will say like, who was the skin person?
Lisa Trevor.
So that whole opening sequence with like her staring, and I know like the I'm so tired of like the deformity as like fear tactic shit, but her whole like watching her sleep and then going upstairs and she's in the little tent and she says hello and like the light turns off in the tent. I was like, oh, this is nice and scary. Ooh, this is so scary. And then it's like, who are you? She's like, I'm this person. She's like, where do you live? She's like, below. You're like, ooh, yes. Like, this is such a good start. This is so scary. Fuck me up. Give me. And then even when she comes back, like the moment she's just like kind of peeking and kind of there, you're like, this girl's got levels. Like, bring her. Like, who is she?
Yeah.
Like, she's stealing the show. Like,
they set up this really interesting movie and I'm like, oh, cool. And then like everything else except for that crush scene was a letdown. Like after setting the bar so high, I was like, okay, cool. Like this is cool.
And like I mean, do I understand it? The dad and his wife and daughter, like them having to escape and then him getting the T virus for himself. And there was a standoff between him and the guy from Umbrella Academy. And like, I don't know. The whole thing, I just like,
and
I
it's
understand.
like, oh my God, you're going to shoot the daughter? Like, and he's like, oh, I wasn't actually going to shoot her. Like, oh my God.
It's like, it's a very confusing film. Confusing in the sense that like, I don't know why we're watching it. Not like why we chose it, because I'm happy we watch it. We're like, I'm happy you and I are watching it, but like as a viewer, what this is gonna sound so mean. What's the purpose? Like, what is the reason besides just pure like by the books nostalgia? Like, we are trying to be the cinematic equivalent of Resident Evil's 1 and 2. Like, this is the compendium film to Resident Evil's 1 and 2. Which again, there's space for that, and I get the reason for it, but like that's also, to me at least, it's downfall because there is no in for somebody who doesn't have that context. from a place that of like enjoyment or like understanding of what's happening. It's not a non-stan friendly film.
Yeah. It's definitely, you have to have all of this context, and it's just kind of a nothing movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
At the end of the day, like, I don't even have a lot to say about anybody or any of the choices or anything, because like it felt so disjointed and it felt so choppy, and it just felt like we were watching a bunch of different stories and I didn't understand how they tied together, and we didn't even get enough of each story to like make me give a shit about anybody. So like, I'm like, okay, they died. Like, the only reason I cared is because I'm like, oh, I know this name. You know, and
yeah,
I'm like,
literally.
oh, I don't care. Okay. Yeah, I don't care. All right. Like,
yeah, it's kind of just a big nothing, which is, I mean, unfortunate.
I have fucking nothing for this movie.
Same. That's literally all I've got.
So,
we're back.
Resident Evil 2002. Okay, let's start that over. Ready?
No, you go. No, wait, no, you start.
You go first. You go.
Wait, no, you.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
We're back. We're back. We're back.
Back.
Okay.
Eric.
Yes.
Resident Evil 2002. Who was this movie for?
I'm going to just say queer people, especially bisexual lesbians everywhere. This is the the Michelle Rodriguez awakening. Like, this was the dawn of the glory that is Michelle Rodriguez in any role she's ever been in. This is it. This is the awakening. She's so hot. This was her movie. I mean, granted, Mila's movie as well. Like, she was a star and like queen. But I'm going to personally say this was for the Michelle Rodriguez hive. 100%. Who did you think it was for?
I was also going to say Michelle Rodriguez, because I think it was for her, like, you know, for her, because she wanted to be in this so bad that she put it in her fucking contract. But also for us, for just like, hello, Michelle, enter Michelle, this is it. And for me, I think I watched this before I watched Fifth Element. Maybe I did watch this movie like when I was a kid. You know what? I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of movies, but it was also for Mila. It was for the girls. This movie was for the girls.
It was for the girlies.
Did you like it?
I did. I really like it. It's kind of a dumb, bad movie in general, but in a way that's like still satisfying and fun. And there's nothing like objectively awful about it. It literally is what it says it is. It's like a slash 'em up zombie with a ton of guns, a lot of gore, some hotties. That's like, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. And I still think it stands up. Again, still kind of a dumb bad movie, but I still really like it. Do you like it?
I love this movie. It is so camp and so fun and so cute. And of course, I'm watching all of the rest right now. So, of course, I liked it. Of course. Yeah. This, like, hit perfectly because, like, I've been so busy lately. I haven't, like, really had time to, like, really, like, and I'm in between shows, too, and everything. So I'm just, like, not really wanting to get too invested in anything. And it's just, like, this hit me. Like, this episode came up at the perfect time where I'm, like, just, like, yes.
Yeah.
So it's great for me. For me, it's great. How about Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City 2021. Eric, was this new, interesting, or the same? Progressive, regressive? Where are you falling on this spectrum?
I think it was new and interesting because it tried to do the thing that I feel like Resident Evil fans wanted, which was a movie about Resident Evil that is dedicated to the game itself. So in that case, it was new and interesting. But as far as like it being progressive or regressive, I think it was regressive in literally every sense. Like, the character development was not there. It stuck too hard to the nostalgia aspect of trying to be the game, the movie. I don't know. It lost everything for me. I don't think there was anything about it that felt progressive at all. It felt very just like an older, badder version of a thing that already existed. But it's a little bit closer to the game, so bing, bang, boom. What do you think?
I'm going to say that this was new, but it was not interesting.
Ooh.
And it was not the same as the first one, but it was the same as like I guess we're not reviewing the video games, but so yeah, it was new and regressive. Absolutely. In so many ways. I think it's camp that's taking itself too seriously because it's trying to stick too closely to like a source material. And again, like trying to jam like 80 hours worth of content into just a tight 90 minutes. So
yeah.
That never works. That doesn't ever work. And if you're going to do this, why not just do the first video game, right? And then do the second video game? Because I guarantee you that people would have done that, right? Like, you had options. This is what you did. And you have to sit in the bed that you made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who is this for?
Fans of the video game. It's literally for the fans of the Resident Evil video games. There's never been a more straightforward question. It's literally who it was made for. That fandom. Who do you think it was for?
I think it was absolutely for gamers. It was for gamers, and
yeah.
I don't know if we're all buying it, man. I don't know if we needed this. Like, as a gamer, as somebody that just loves IPs so much, if you're gonna make a movie about something, either do it really fucking interesting or give it a big ass budget. And I feel like whenever people try to adapt video games into film or into TV, it's always really hard. It's always a struggle, and nobody ever really does it right or does it justice to me as a fan of the video game, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of work to be done in this space, and I'm excited for somebody to finally crack the formula, or I don't know why and why this happens, but I'm ready for something good.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it. So, The Last of Us TV show that's coming out, I'm hoping that that's good.
Is that Pedro Pascal?
Yes.
Okay. Famous daddy Pedro Pascal.
Yes. Murder daddy extraordinaire.
Oh my God.
Did you like this?
No, not really. It has its moments, but as a whole, I thought it was pretty boring. How about you? Did you like it?
Oh my God, it was so boring. All I could do was just laugh because, like, I know that these moments are supposed to be big moments or big reveals, and it's just, everything was just so funny because it was just a choice but that scene, the crush scene, will live on forever in my memory.
It is like such a good moment.
Forever.
It's so funny. It's so cute.
It's so good. Anyways, I think that's it.
Wow, look at us. Congrats us. Go us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We love you so much. And
thank you all for being here. And while we have you, please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts, because it means a lot to us. Also, follow us on social media. We're everywhere. Nostalgia.pod, nostalgia_pod. Very cute, very chic, very now. Follow us because we're great. And you'll literally love it.
And us even more,
and
possibly.
Us even. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Editing is by Danny Barkley. And thank you again for listening. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical. Goodbye.
Bye.
For now. Ta-ta for now. TTFN. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is more than just a show.
It's a conversation of growth,
Of trauma.
Of culture.
of intention.
And of change.
The Mamas and the Appas is a weekly conversational podcast from the NOTstalgia Network dedicated to discussing the Avatar universe as folklore, episode by episode.
I'm Eric Lefebvre.
I'm Dr. Amber Jones.
And I'm Jessica Tercero. Join us weekly as we dig into all things Avatar and Korra, including Uncle Iroh's hot bod versus his war criminal history.
Avatar Aang's well-meaning cultural revisionism versus Zuko's performance of toxic masculinity.
How ultimately Katara is the savior and the hero of the story.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the NOTstalgia Network.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.